You have been doing it right. The voice calm, measured, lower than you felt like going. The words, I understand, you're frustrated, I see you're having a hard time, your feelings are valid. You got down on the floor. You made eye contact. You did not raise your hand or your voice or leave the room. And somewhere in the middle of the fourth or fifth repetition of everything you were supposed to say, with the cup still on the floor and your toddler still screaming and your jaw locked in a way that was starting to hurt, you realized something was wrong. Not with the philosophy, with you. Because you were doing all of it and none of it was working, and you were exhausted in a way that felt different from tired. You were exhausted from performing something you weren't actually feeling, and a thought you didn't want to have showed up anyway. What if I'm doing all of this and it's still not enough? I need to tell you something that no gentle parenting account, book, or course has said clearly enough. Gentle parenting is not failing you because the philosophy is wrong. It's failing you because you were only taught half of it. You were taught the words. Nobody taught you the state. And without the state, the words don't go anywhere. That is not a personal failure. That is a design flaw in every resource that handed you a script without handing you the biological infrastructure to deliver it. Stay with me for the next few minutes, because what I'm about to show you is not an argument against gentle parenting. It's the part of the science that gentle parenting forgot to include. And once you see it, the exhaustion you've been feeling starts to make a different kind of sense. Here is what the science of child development actually shows, not the Instagram version. Not the version recorded in a quiet studio by someone who hasn't been awake since 5:45 a.m. The version from developmental neuroscience, attachment research, and polyvagal theory, the three bodies of work that gentle parenting drew from but only partially translated. Your toddler's nervous system is not processing your words. It is processing your state. This is not a metaphor. It is a measurable, documented biological reality. When you are in sympathetic activation, when your heart rate is elevated, your breathing is shallow, your muscles are slightly tensed, your jaw is doing what your jaw is doing right now. Your nervous system is broadcasting a signal. That signal travels through your tone of voice, your facial expression, your proximity, your breathing rate, and your toddler's nervous system receives it before your toddler's brain processes a single word you've said. Neuroimaging studies show that children whose parents are in sympathetic activation, even when those parents are not yelling, even when they are using the correct words, even when they are physically calm in appearance, show cortisol elevation comparable to children exposed to open conflict. Let that land for a moment. Your toddler's stress response does not distinguish between a parent who is yelling and a parent who is performing calm while their nervous system is running a threat response underneath. The child's biology reads the state, not the script. This means that gentle parenting executed from an activated nervous system is not gentle parenting. It is the appearance of gentle parenting. And your toddler, who has no prefrontal cortex to speak of, who is processing the world almost entirely through subcortical, felt sense, body-based channels, knows the difference in a way they cannot articulate but cannot be fooled about. Tell me in the comments, have you ever done everything right, the right words, the right tone, and still felt like nothing landed? I want to know if this is resonating. Now I need to name the thing that gentle parenting got exactly right and exactly incomplete. The instruction, be the regulated adult in the room, is correct. It is, in fact, the most important single instruction in all of developmental psychology. Every method, every framework, every approach that produces secure attachment and emotional resilience in children comes back to this one thing: the parent's regulated nervous system as the primary resource the child borrows until they can generate their own. The problem is not the instruction. The problem is that nobody told you how to get there. Telling an exhausted parent to be the regulated adult in the room without giving them the biological tools to arrive at regulation is the equivalent of telling someone running a fever that they need to have a normal temperature. The instruction is correct. The absence of the how makes it useless. And worse than useless, it makes you feel like the failure is yours. Like you simply don't have what it takes to be the parent the philosophy requires. You are not the failure. The sequence is: gentle parenting taught you what a regulated parent looks like from the outside. It did not teach you how to build regulation from the inside, in the real conditions of your life. Not the ideal conditions of a parenting podcast, the real ones, the 6 a.m. ones, the 3 days without proper sleep ones, the second meltdown of the morning before you've eaten ones. And here is what I've come to believe after everything the science shows and everything I've seen in how this actually plays out for real parents in real kitchens. Gentle parenting isn't a philosophy problem. It's a sequencing problem. The sequence has always been wrong. You were given the output: calm presence, emotional attunement, regulated response, without being given the input that makes the output possible. Regulation is not the result of gentle parenting. It is the prerequisite for it. Now, if everything I just explained resonated with you, I need to tell you something important. Because understanding your toddler's brain is only half the equation. The other half is what happens inside your nervous system when the meltdown starts. Most parents I talk to say the same thing: I know what to do. I just can't do it when it's actually happening. That's not a willpower problem. That's a sequencing problem, and nobody has ever given you the right tool in the right order for the right moment. I wrote the reset cycle specifically for that gap. It's not another gentle parenting theory. It's a 3-step biological system: regulate, break, repair, built for the real conditions of your life. The 7 a.m. meltdown, the supermarket floor, the moment after you already yelled. It works before the crisis, after the explosion, and in the hours that follow. The link is in the description. And if there's one thing you take away from this video today, take that. So what does the science actually recommend? Not instead of gentle parenting, underneath it. As the foundation that makes it work, the science recommends co-regulation, which is a clinical term for something very simple: your nervous system lending its stability to your child's nervous system until your child can build their own. Co-regulation is not a technique, it is a biological transfer. And it only works in one direction, from a regulated system to an unregulated one, which means it cannot happen when both systems are in crisis simultaneously. Which means the first job, always in every framework, in every piece of developmental research, is your regulation, not your child's, yours. This is not what gentle parenting forgot to mention. This is what gentle parenting assumed you already had. And the assumption was wrong, not because parents are broken, but because nobody is born knowing how to regulate their nervous system under the specific and relentless pressure of raising a toddler. That is a skill. It has a biology. It can be learned. But it has to be learned first, before the scripts, before the validation language, before the floor-level eye contact, before any of the visible, audible, behavioral outputs of gentle parenting that you've been working so hard to produce. The parent who gets down on the floor and says, I see you're having a hard time from a regulated nervous system, is doing something neurologically different from the parent who says the same words from an activated one. The first is co-regulation. The second is performance. Your toddler's subcortical processing system cannot be fooled by performance, but it responds almost immediately to the real thing, to the actual physiological state of safety that a regulated nervous system broadcasts through tone and breath and proximity and presence to a child who is borrowing it because they have no other option. If what I'm describing is landing for you, if you're realizing that the missing piece was never the words, subscribe. Because every week we go one layer deeper into what your toddler's brain actually needs and how to give it to them without running yourself into the ground in the process. What I want you to leave this video with is this: you did not fail at gentle parenting. You were handed half of a system and asked to produce the results of the whole thing. The half you were given, the language, the posture, the principles, is real and it matters. But it sits on top of something the books assumed you already had: your own regulated nervous system, your own biological capacity to be present in a way that your child can borrow. That capacity is not fixed. It is not something you either have or don't. It is something you build with the right tools in the right sequence for the real conditions of your actual life. Before you go, I want to know, what does gentle parenting feel like for you right now? Is it working? Is it exhausting? Is it somewhere in between? Tell me in the comments, because next week I'm going to go into exactly what regulation actually looks like in practice, in the moments when you need it most. That one is going to be worth being here for. You were not taught the wrong thing. You were taught an incomplete thing. And the piece that's missing is not a value, not a mindset, not a commitment to being a better parent. It's a biological infrastructure, and it was always supposed to come first. You don't need to abandon gentle parenting. You need to build the foundation it was always standing on, and you can start building it today, not when you're more rested, not when the toddler phase gets easier. Today, with the tools that actually work in the conditions you're actually in,